The way we've laid it out is I think there are 4 stages. There are things that you should be focusing on during that stage to get to the top of that stage and then move on to future stages. There are things that are pure distractions at each stage that may be perfectly in alignment with what you should be thinking about at a different stage, but that are completely detrimental if you're in the inappropriate stage and trying to focus on those things. So we're going to talk about the focuses, the distractions, and then how to level up in each of the 4 stages today so that you're focusing on the stage, whatever stage you are at, you can leave this episode with, okay, I know I should at least focus on one of these areas to move my business forward.
Welcome to the Gym Member Machine Podcast.
Some of the business guru education you're consuming right now might be hurting your gym. It's meant for someone maybe that's at a completely different stage than you're at. So today we're talking about the 4 stages of fitness business freedom. I feel like that's a pretty strong take, GR. Can you unpack why that's the case?
Here's the deal. Dear listeners, we believe there's 4 stages to fitness business freedom. And you'll see these, I think the original 4 mountains of business came straight out of Jim Collins, Good to Great. Folks talk about different stages. To me, in the gym business, like the levels of Jim Collins businesses are so different in terms of the mountains. It's like, oh, when you're under 10 million, like you're a little fledgling little things. Like I know a lot of successful gyms. I don't know anybody over 10 million, but the point is there's these different stages. And this, I used to see it happen in the mastermind we were a part of, where you had folks that had 15 clients, 10, 15 clients. So we're not talking one-on-one. Like this is back in the day when everyone was doing large group. And one of the gurus at the top of the mountain, so to speak, would say, oh, delegation. Delegation is the most important thing that you can do. You need to hire a coach. You need to systematize. You need to do all this shit. And these guys and it's not necessarily the guru's fault. Like they didn't necessarily tell that individual to go off and hire 3 coaches when they were pulling in $2,000 a month gross or whatever it was. But the point is, some of these people take the advice as gospel because a guru said it. They said delegation is super important. They said XYZ is super important. And it's just not for the stage of business they're in, right? Like that advice was very much counterproductive. In fact, that gym ended up closing. Is it the guru's fault? No, I don't think so. That wasn't one-on-one coaching that the guru gave, but it was inappropriate for the stage that gym owner was at that time. And so for me, the way we've laid it out is I think there are 4 stages. There are things that you should be focusing on during that stage to get to the top of that stage and then move on to future stages. There are things that are pure distractions at each stage that may be perfectly in alignment with what you should be thinking about at a different stage, but that are completely detrimental if you're in the inappropriate stage and trying to focus on those things. So we're going to talk about the focuses, the distractions, and then how to level up in each of the 4 stages today so that you're focusing on the stage, whatever stage you are at, you can leave this episode with, okay, I know I should at least focus on one of these areas to move my business forward. That's the idea.
Yeah, and each of these stages has a really cool name that sort of describes what it is. And like you said, there's a risk to looking too far in the future. I've never been accused of that, or looking too far in the past. And so we'll get into, like you said, the focus, distraction, and how to get to the next stage. So tell us a bit about stage 1.
All right, so stage 1 is self-employed survival. Now, to be clear, with each of these stages, there's one caveat I want to give before we get into the details of each one. Neither one of these, this is viewed, if we put it together as a graphic for folks to reference, yes, it'll be a pyramid or stages or mountains, if you will. Look, stage 1 is not any worse than stage 4. Stage 4 is not any better than stage 3 necessarily. It's about the game that you want to play individually as the business owner. In fact, I think for each of these stages, I'll also give, hey, what does winning and staying in this stage look like? Because stage 1, as an example, I was doing one-on-one coaching with a guy that had no interest in getting off the floor, had no interest in having a team, just wanted to be basically a highly paid trainer that was running his own thing. He was self-employed. Self-employed, I think, gets a bad rap in entrepreneurship content in this day and age. But the reality is, like, this guy was really, really successful as a trainer, had a bunch of clients that loved him, and was actually making more money. Again, I was doing one-on-one coaching at the time and got to see the inside, like behind the kimono or under the kimono, whatever the term is, of the individual I was coaching that just wanted to be self-employed. And one of the guys that was running the groups with a 7-figure gym, well, the self-employed guy, the lowly personal trainer, was taking home more money than the guru at the top of the mountain bragging about a 7-figure gym. So there's good and bad. There's ways to thrive in each stage, and we'll talk about those. But self-employed survival is basically the stage where you're doing everything yourself. You are the show, you're the coach, you're the player, and you're the owner. You're in the early stages, like struggling typically to get your first handful of clients. That is the only thing that you're concerned about is how do I freaking pay the rent next month, right? Where's my next client from, et cetera, et cetera. The barriers for the next the ensuing levels, I guess, of business, there are some revenue markers, but it's really more about how much cash and profit do you have to be able to afford to start to delegate, right? So it's not a number of clients, it's not an amount of revenue. Like you can be up to probably a 25, 30, 35K a month type of business and still be just self-employed, doing everything yourself, depending on how you have things structured and how much work you want to be doing. Because by definition, in self-employed survival, you are probably doing basically 100% of the jobs.
I actually did a coaching call a very long time ago with our friend and gym member machine coach, Mike Baker. And I remember this is when I was first starting my gym. And I thoroughly remember when I'm like, oh, should I start SOPs or I'm thinking about doing a job application? He goes, Dave, butts and seats. And like that seared into my brain. And that sort of, I think, is one of the mantras for this stage.
It's the only thing you should be focused on. Like there's two things. There's getting butts in seats and there's serving the shit out of those butts in the seats, which actually like sounds way more gross now that we're saying we're putting butts and shit together, but it's basically, it's sales and service. Those are the only two things that you want to be concerned about in this stage. It's getting to a critical mass, getting a working acquisition system. And this doesn't have to be, and oftentimes it's not, particularly in early self-employed survival, it is not paid ads. It is harnessing the power of free, getting people to try your services and learning, serving them so well that you can then convert them into members on the other side. But it is literally just, how do I get more clients? How do I get more people to try what the heck I'm doing? And then how do I make my experience so great that they want to stay and pay and refer their friends? That's it. So if you are in self-employed survival, particularly if you're struggling, and we're going to have a whole episode that we're filming. I don't know if it'll be released before or after this one, but there's going to be a whole episode for those of you that are in that kind of self-employed survival stage and just struggling. Like, I'm basically broke. Fix me now, GR. We're going to have that episode coming out as one of the next episodes. But everything else, everything that is not sales and service is a fucking distraction. So your logo is a distraction during this time period. Like I've seen folks that they've got 8 clients and they're spending weeks trying to figure out how to get the best logo and what their brand should be and trying to design their own website and so on and so forth. Like, dude, if you are literally just getting started, like the record for a business that worked with us, we had a gym that got up to like 35K a month. They didn't even have a website. That doesn't mean they didn't have a website with us. That doesn't mean they didn't have a pretty website. It means they had zero website whatsoever, and they were like a 35K a month type facility. Do I think you should go that far without having a website? No. But is that proof to me that a website is a distraction if you're at freaking 10 clients and you're just trying to get off the ground? It's like, yeah, put something simple up there where people can plug in their information, opt in, raise their hand, say they're interested in what you do, and then follow up and sell. Like, that is it. This is the time period of hard manual labor and building the business with your time, energy, and talent. If you've got enough money, then you can probably hire yourself sort of into stage 2 just with financial backing. But for most of the people that are going to be listening to this are not going to be like, oh, I'm an owner investor type that's trying to come into the fitness industry to make money with my millions that I made at Microsoft, right? These are mom and pop personal trainers that fell in love with fitness and want to make a living doing it, right? You're not going to have the financial backing. Your only focus is literally getting butts in seats and serving them oh so well so that they stay and pay and refer, and literally everything else is a distraction. I don't want to hear about your brand. I don't want to hear about your website. All I want to hear about is how many sales did you get this week? And what are you doing to make the product better? How did you collect feedback from clients? What did you do to implement on said feedback? How many referrals did you ask for? How many strangers did you talk to? How many free VIP passes did you give out this week? Like, I want us to focus on those things and those things alone.
Yep. So the focus is sales and service. Distractions is everything that F else. And then the next piece, GR, is how to climb the ladder. So if these folks want to ascend to stage 2, what does that look like?
It's literally just brute force focus on continuing to run the plays that are working. So early on, you're going to be doing a lot of trial and error, even if you follow this stuff. And to be clear, like that episode that we're putting out about, hey, I'm broke, like fix me, right? I'm struggling, fix me. It's got I shouldn't say an infinite number, but it's got a bunch of different ideas that you can use to go get clients with little to no money. You're still going to have to be trying things, right? It's going to be a lot of trial and error. And once you find something that works, it's like, go do more of that. Okay. If referrals are the thing, then figure out how to milk the shit out of referrals for your business. If those start to dry up a little bit, then find whatever the next play may be to go out and get more clients. But it is literally just a continued focus on those things until you get to a point of critical mass where you can now afford to start to think about, okay, I've been doing everything. I want to focus on higher level things. And what should I delegate first, right? Where can I start firing myself from different roles in the business? I love the idea of fire the founder. Well, the idea is if you're going to move from stage 1 to stage 2, you have to start firing yourself from certain things. And the only way to do that is to get to a critical mass of clients and cash, where now you're not going to basically kill the business to be able to do that.
And Jerry, you've talked about in the past, the bridge from stage 1 to stage 2 is really all about delegation. So how do I know if I'm in stage 1, how do I know that it's time to start firing myself, and maybe where do I start?
Yeah. So, and again, I don't want to belabor the point too much, because we've talked about it, I think in other episodes, like, what do I delegate first? My number one thing to delegate first for like 99.9% of gym owners is your freaking bookkeeping. Right. So when we look at delegation, we want to look at, I think it's 3 things. I forget how many things there are, but basically I look at it like this. Number 1, I'm going to do the hate, love, and great suck quadrant. So what do I love and I'm great at, and what do I hate and I suck at? I'm going to start there because that gives me an idea. Okay, what's draining my energy? What's giving me energy? What am I actually really, really good at? What am I maybe not so good at? Then I'm going to look at how much time each of those things is costing me, or how much time I'm spending in any of the given areas. And I'm going to look at the cost of delegating any of those pieces that you may be doing. And to be clear, when you throw in your hate, suck, I need to get better at saying that. When you throw in your love, hate, suck, great quadrant, you're looking at each of the individual roles, like the micro jobs you're doing. It's not like gym owner. Well, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't love it and I don't hate all the things of being a gym owner. And I feel like I'm probably kind of okay at it. No, you're looking at like, what are the different roles that a gym owner has? Well, I'm doing training. Okay. Some of you may be training different demographics. It might be, oh, I love training the athletes and I'm great at it. And I'm just okay at training the adults. And I'm just okay, and I just feel okay about it. There may be bookkeeping is another one, which is typically going to be, gosh, you hate and you suck at it. Running your ads, writing copy, doing graphics, social media, whatever. Those are going to be other things. Updating your clients' membership agreements or updating membership levels in your booking and billing software. Like, oh, that's a part of your job. And so you're going to take every component of the jobs that you're doing. I didn't put them on the love, hate, suck, rate quadrant. Add a time to them. How much time are you spending in each of those areas? And then I look at the cost. And the cost of delegation is the financial cost, right? So just the hard financial cost of removing something off your plate, either all or part of it. But then there's also the opportunity cost of not doing anything about it, and the manual labor cost of you training up that individual, right? Because all costs are not financial. And that's where I say, look, if you're going to hire a trainer as the first thing, maybe it's the right answer, maybe it's not. If you hire a trainer, it's going to have a higher financial cost typically. You're probably going to have to hire them as W-2, so you add taxes and shit like that to it. You're going to have to train those people up, right? I think we talked about this in one of the earlier episodes. That's a time cost that you wouldn't have to deal with if you hired somebody to do your bookkeeping, I think is thing one. Spoiler alert, I think the best second thing that you can delegate is work with an ads and automation company, someone like Gym Member Machine, right? Because guess what? You're not going to have to pay us nearly as much as you would a full-time personal trainer, right? We're going to be experts. So you're not going to have to train us how to do your marketing. We're going to know it better than you will. So we're going to come in immediately cheaper and do a better job than what you were doing. Not to mention with GMM, like we move all this other shit off your plate. So now you can get a website that's fully tied into your sales and automation software. You can take some of the follow-up you were doing. We're going to automate a good chunk of that, take some of that off your plate, right? It's going to be a tax deduction. So instead of paying extra taxes on your employees like you do, it's like, guess what? Well, now you just get to deduct GMM's, not accounting advice, not financial advice, fees and whatnot from your taxes next year. Like that's a great second thing. Once you get to a critical mass of cash where I'm going to invest in something that is going to grow the business, grow the opportunity, give me the opportunity to continue to grow things further so that you can then afford to delegate more and more off your plate and fire yourself from more and more decisions. The last point, and I'll circle back to this, self-employed survival, there is a top level of that, self-employed surthrival. Yeah. Patent pending or trademark pending, thriving, because you can absolutely thrive as a self-employed person. And that's just basically, I think you could delegate your bookkeeping, you could delegate your marketing to someone like us. Like we have people that have been longtime clients of GMM that just like, hey, you guys keep the funnel topped off. I'll train them and knock them down when they show up for appointments. And like, we'll just keep making money and doing things this way. The pros and cons to self-employed survival mode or self-employed survival. Pros, hey, you don't got to worry about management. You don't got to worry about team. Like you really get to be focused on mostly sort of the main thing that you probably got into this business for. The downsides are, dude, you want to go on vacation? What happens to the business? Are you going to have to pause people's billing or refund people? You're definitely not growing when you're on vacation, right? There's some downsides to it that you don't have to deal with in the other levels. But there's pros and cons to each of these.
Okay, GR, anything else we should be thinking about as we move from stage 1 to stage 2?
I just got distracted by what is it, a spine roller of some kind? I thought it was going to be a big green phallic object behind you. But the other thing you'd be thinking about, and this is admittedly, it only becomes more important as you start to think about delegating more things, but it's making sure that you're priced appropriately, that your model is something that can actually spit out what you need the business to spit out. We won't go into detail on that in this episode. There's a whole episode on pricing. But like if you're thinking about, yeah, I don't want to be doing all these jobs forever. I don't want to be able to progress through these stages. You will not be able to progress through any of them if you do not have an appropriate model and if you're not priced appropriately for what you want your model to look like. That's where I would refer them to the pricing episode that we did.
Awesome. So let's cross into stage 2, right? We've gotten to the point where we're ready to climb the ladder. We've got a critical mass of cash and clients. We're starting to do some delegation and outsourcing, bookkeeper, marketing agency, making those good decisions. So what do we call stage 2?
Stage 2 is moving up manager. And I love my alliteration, right? Self-employed survival, moving up manager. This is where your role starts to change because you're going to start to delegate more and more off your plate. Again, is there a level where this really changes? I don't think it's a revenue level. I think it's a sort of a what does your job and life look like level. So moving up manager, and I guess I'll just bury the lead and kill the suspense. Stage 3 is leveled up leader maker. Again, sorry guys, like I love alliteration. And that is where you have true leaders and decision makers that are also working in your business, right? Moving up manager, kind of the peak for that it's typically going to be a single location type facility. You're typically going to you're only going to be training the hours that you want to be training, right? This is the end stage of moving up manager. You're probably only doing really kind of a lot of the jobs that you think you still want to do. Depending on the size of the business, you may be able to be completely delegated in a single location, depending on what your financial goals are. There's going to be a limit to what you can make from a single location if you're not doing any of the jobs in the business, because if you're not doing any of the jobs, someone is doing those jobs, and those someones typically need money in order to continue to do those jobs, right? People don't typically work for free. So your income can be a little bit limited, but depending on what your personal financial goals are, like you can absolutely crush and live a great life on one gym, one location, a small team of trainers, maybe some admin help. You got your bookkeeper and your marketing agency, your accountant, whatever, like your outsourced hires, if you will. But you can do pretty well in a moving up at the top of a moving up manager position. The thing you're missing at that stage is other true drivers of the business, folks that really, Mark Ennis used to say this all the time, people that share the stress of growing the business with you, as opposed to all the real stress being on your shoulders as the owner.
Yep. And so for that stage 2, you might have like an admin, maybe a part-time coach. Maybe that coach is doing more and more, but how much would a healthy stage 2 moving up manager be coaching on the floor? I know it varies, but what have you seen in your
So I
experience?
mean, it's going to vary. So it depends on whether or not you want to continue to the ensuing stages, and it depends on what your personal financial goals are. So the more that you decide to just stay in the business. So like I was running a stage 2 business in Minnesota for a long time, where I had a full-time coach. I had an admin. I liked doing some of the coaching, so I would coach in the evenings. We split the load on sales. Now, like sales for us were different because we did group orientation, so like we didn't have a bunch of appointments to deal with on that front. But we kind of split the load on sales. I coached when I wanted to coach, and that was that. Right, like it was a nice, profitable business for a while. I got to take home a chunk of the money because I was still coaching instead of paying out that payroll to somebody else. So it's not a, hey, you're not going to be doing any of the training necessarily. I would argue you could be a moving up manager even if all you did was outsource, say, admin, marketing, bookkeeping, what have you. It's a little bit harder because if you're going to have a like real thriving training business, you probably have to do split shifts, right? In order to get enough members to be able to support the income that you're looking for and not just be completely disqualified because you don't have morning or evening sessions. But it's less of a hard fast, hey, this is exactly what it's going to look like, and more a, this is if all you want is a choose your own adventure single location gym, you can sort of build it however you want to, and you just slowly and systematically move yourself out of the different roles that you don't necessarily care to keep doing. The way that you move up and the way that you progress is creating actual true leaders in your business where you don't have to be the only decision maker. So the focus is at this stage, to go back to the framework, number one, you can't stop serving and selling, right? Like you've got to keep running the play. You've got to keep growing the business if you want to move up, or even if you want to just move up to the top of like, hey, I'm killing it as a moving up manager. You've got to keep running those acquisition plays. Like you still need to be focused on sales and service. But the next piece, the thing that is going to be the roadblock between you really doing well with this and kind of riding the struggle bus and making this a years long foray that most gym owners never move out of this stage, is hiring and management. So the skills that you're going to have to develop in order to progress through this stage, absolutely hiring and management of said hires.
Like you said, everything that is happening in level 1 still has to happen at a very high level at level 2, whether you're doing it or you've hired, managed, trained, or holding your team accountable to do those things. What are the distractions that get in the way at this level 2?
Yeah. So distractions, shiny object syndrome, which is like, you could call that a distraction at every level. But what we see with folks that get into moving up manager is, okay, I get a working offer, a working acquisition system. You're typically going to have at least 2 or 3 mechanisms that you acquire clients somewhat consistently in this stage. So referrals are always going to be one for everybody that's doing any sort of solid service. Pay ads are typically going to be one. And then you might throw in, like, sometimes paid ads get you all the way up to freaking stage 4. Just, hey, referrals and paid ads and you're good. Other times, all right, we're going to do events, or we're going to do charity things. We're going to do, any number of other potential mechanisms to acquire clients. But shiny object syndrome is the biggest one, because folks will have something that's working, get bored, and then move out of what's working because they see some guru promise the world on a Facebook ad, right? And now all of a sudden they're oh, it worked well for a month and then it all went to shit. And now all my systems changed and I threw the entire, business model because I saw such and such guru say that I need to be doing semi-private instead of small group. And so now I'm jumping to semi-private, but then the next guru comes on and says, we'll need to be doing small group training because that's what's scaling right now. And now I'm going to do, we're jumping from all of these different things instead of just running the thing that got you there and doing well with that. And so like shiny object syndrome is absolutely the thing that will keep you stuck and not in a thriving moving up manager situation, but keep you stuck in a situation where you're not making the money you want to make. You're not able to delegate what you want to delegate. And you're kind of hating your life as a gym owner in stage 2, because you can absolutely hate your life as a gym owner in stage 2. So shiny object syndrome's one. I would say shit that doesn't move the needle. So this is still not a stage. Like, do you need to be worried about your brand and your logo and da-da-da? Like, probably not. Do you need to be worried about, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other ideas of things that just don't move the needle, like your perfect A-frame signage that goes outside the gym. Like, probably not. Do you need to be going in with through your website copy of every blog with a fine-tooth comb? Like, no, probably not, right? You need to be focused on the things that really move the business, that are high impact for the business. So like executing like hell on your sales, which, your follow-up, your sales, etc. Executing like hell on the training, right? Anything that does not allow you to delegate the stuff that you need to delegate while also keeping the quality of those things high that you have delegated, right? We can't do delegation by abdication, right? Okay, hey, here's I hired you as a trainer. Go train my people, and the quality goes to shit. Like, you've got to make sure the quality is still exceptionally high. And then second locations. Oh, I get to the point where I'm making some money. I'm making whatever, 5K a month, and I have some profit on top of that 5K a month that I'm paying myself at this gym. Holy shit. You know what sounds better than 5K a month? 10K a month. So I'm going to go open my second location. I'm going to start looking at that. Like, dude, until you are through this stage to the top of this stage and you have other leaders, like you are squarely in stage 3, a second location is a complete distraction, right? Like, you ain't there yet, dude. So, yeah, those are probably your top 3 distractions of stage 2. How you climb the ladder is you keep growing, right? You focus on the things that you need to be focused on. You need to have good data and good scoreboards, right? Because if you don't have good data, you're just guessing and you're not going to be able to make strategic decisions with where you put money, what you delegate, et cetera, et cetera. You need to be able to delegate well. So that means, all right, do we have documentation and processes and onboarding practices for when we have to hire a new trainer? Because, if you're still with your first hire, like, congratulations, I love that for you. People don't stay in your business forever, right? Businesses have 100% churn rate. Your employees have 100% churn rate. Even if they stay with you their whole life, at some point, sadly, they die, and you or your business would have to replace that individual. So like, you need to have processes in place to replace whatever roles are happening in your business. If we don't have that, if we don't have the documentation and the systems, you're not going to be able to move into a situation where you've got leaders that can execute on those things, and you can move your focus onto bigger and better things, potentially multiple locations, et cetera, et cetera. What did I miss, Dave?
I think you nailed it. Yeah, I think you nailed it. And that sets us up for stage 3. But just a quick recap, you talked about avoiding the distractions of shiny object syndrome, whether it's like your business model, different training modalities, marketing. I know tech tools and software is one I see a lot of, like this, and especially in the age of AI, like this crazy automation tool or this messaging thing. Like you said, a lot of those things that are not acquisition, service, delegation really don't move the needle. And I love the clear boundary around, like, hey, until you get to level 3 and you're crushing it with data, scoreboards, you've got leaders and horses who can protect your primary asset of location 1. Second location is just shouldn't even be in the conversation. So I think that's super helpful. You already hinted at the leveled up leader maker. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So leveled up leader maker can be a fun stage, because this is where, if you've grown the business to where you can start to afford to have really high level people, that you get to have high level strategic conversations about what to do next with the business. This can be a fun spot where you can start to think about scaling things up. So you're in this stage if the business is basically mostly delegated and you're starting to develop folks to be your right hand, to run your facilities and run your facilities well. You're developing people that if you had to go on a 90-day sabbatical or a 6-month sabbatical, you're like, well, the gym would still be fine because I have Dave there to run the gym, and Dave knows the systems. Dave knows how to hire people. Dave knows how to manage people. Dave knows what the sales and acquisition systems are and can execute on those things, or can manage the team that executes on those things, right? Like, it can be a really fun situation if you get to this stage. The hard part with this is delegating the big decisions, because leveled up leader maker, I think probably the biggest like psychological hurdle to get over in this stage is letting go. Because you, up to this point, you've probably made all the decisions in the business. You probably decide, hey, this is the programming system that we use. This is the structure that we use for XYZ. This is, like, all of the decisions have been yours. And if you are, by definition, going to develop other leaders and decision makers, then you've got to be able to trust those people to lead and make good decisions, right? Now, it's a training process. There's a whole thing. It's not just like, okay, Dave, you've been a trainer for a while. I have now anointed you manager. Now please make all the decisions of business. Like, no, that's not what we're saying. That does not make sense. It's a training process, and it takes time. For context, if you're curious about how we handle a lot of those things, well, starting off, it's going to be, okay, I want you to start, like, we've talked about you wanting to be my right hand. I hate saying number two because that doesn't sound good, but we talked about you being the right hand, running the facility, what have you. Let's work towards that. So when we have decisions, like, I want you to bring me your, what is it, 131? I think it's like Tony Robbins, Dan Martell, where you bring me the problem, you bring me 3 proposed solutions, you tell me which one is your favorite and why. Like, I want to hear what your thought process is. I don't want you to just bring your monkeys to me and say, hey, boss, here's a monkey. You take care of it, right? I want people to bring solutions, and then you can give them feedback on whatever solutions they brought, why it makes a lot of sense, why it doesn't, et cetera, and start to train that decision-making muscle and that leadership muscle for your team. But that's hard for a lot of us because we are being forced to let go of control, which, again, is hard to do because you've gotten this business to, at this point, you're a relatively successful operation. You're probably more successful than most gyms on earth. Most gyms don't move past stage 2. And a lot of that was due to your decision making. And so it can be a hard thing to let go of. And it's something that you should not do lightly, but also be prepared to deal with, right? Like, it's something that takes, I think, a good bit of care to do well. The real telling thing, again, about stage 2 is, can you leave the business for an extended period of time? Like, can you leave that specific location for an extended period of time and still have the location be successful and continue to grow? That's the big thing. In terms of what you're focused on pouring into the highest level people that you have on your team and creating other leaders in your business, right? Typically, it's going to start with one. You're going to have one person that you're training up to be a facility leader, general manager, et cetera, type person. Again, this is assuming that you want to effectively completely remove yourself from the business, right? So some people remove themselves completely so that they can go open location number 2. Other folks will remove themselves completely so they can, like, start a fucking OnlyFans, like, do whatever the heck the other thing is that they want to do. I go on Feet Finder, like I've talked about, maybe not on this podcast, but I got a good Feet Finder foot. You guys want to see it? Like, I've got a very large second toe. I believe it's called a Morton's toe. I feel like I could shave it, put an AI avatar of some hot blonde, and really do well. Really do well. Age of AI with some real feet, like, really, really crush it there. Yeah, sorry, tangent, ADD. Where do we go from there? Were we at distractions?
Yeah, I don't know how we got from leveled up leader to Feet Finder, but we'll pull us back here. So, okay, so for this one, I love how you said, like, you've got someone who is really a strategic asset. You can have high level conversations with them. You've let go of things. You can do the vacation test where you can take multiple, even weeks off, and nothing's on fire. And like you said, you're training your team, especially your manager, whether it's a GM or a facility leader, training director, whatever you call it, they're getting reps with that decision-making muscle. So you don't have to make every single decision and you're starting to delegate more and more there. So yeah, I love to hear what are the distractions for stage 3 in the leveled up leader maker.
Yeah, the distractions are second locations before you've developed the horses. So you need the horses and really you need the systems. My favorite recommendation for folks that are thinking about opening a second location is leave your first location for a while. Uh, the way I did it in the Minnesota gym was we always knew we were going to move back to Texas, and I needed a stress test being able to run that gym remotely right from 1,000 miles away. And so for the last, like, we knew when E was graduating. It's my wife; she's the better half, the real brains of the operation. We knew when she'd be graduating from the PhD stuff, and so I think it was most of the last year. I want to say it was 6 to 9 months. I started working remotely from the gym. So I would go in as a client, literally, like I would go in at noon. We had a 12 to 12:30 session. We had a 30-minute session block at lunch. I'd go in at noon. I'd be a client. I'd see some people. I would still get my workout in, and then that'd be it. And then I would come in the evenings to train with the athletes, because we do conditioning games, and I just love the athletes. Like, I miss it. We on the sales coaching call earlier today, we were talking about sport performance stuff, and it's like, God, I want to open a sports performance gym again. Like, I miss that stuff. So I'd come in to do that, but I was not doing any of the sales. I wasn't training the sessions. I was training in the sessions as a client, right? Like, I was literally working remotely for at least the last 6 months before we left and stress tested it. Like, that's something I think you should do. It doesn't have to be 6 months, but should you give your team a month? Hey, we're looking at this second location stuff. I'm going to go be doing meetings and looking at real estate and what have you. We're doing this to try to create more opportunity for you guys, really expand the brand, expand the vision, et cetera, and see how the team does with you not being able to be there. Does the gym continue to grow? Do you have people that can actually sell? Do you think they can do the thing, or can they actually do the thing when you step away? So you want to stress test that situation before you go out and say, all right, like, let's get into the second location thing too early. Because even at leveled up leader maker, if you're in the beginning of this stage, you ain't ready, right? You want to make sure you're ready before you actually move him into that role. So you need to make sure you're developing the horses. You need to make sure that they are distractions. So the distraction would be doing the work instead of developing the people who do the work, right? So letting go of the different things that you're doing inside the business, at least delegating at least the things that you would not be able to physically do if you were going to go off and open a second location, right? You want to make sure that those things are still getting done. And the other one for this stage that I really like as a distraction is one client decisions. So there are things that you can do in your business that impact one client, and there's things that you can do in the business that impact many clients, sometimes all the clients or the entire team or what have you. So if we're in stage 3, we're leveled up leader makers, and we are dealing with an individual decision on, like, hey, this client says that they want to pause for an extra day. Like, dude, no, right? Like, we don't want to be having those individual, spend significant time on things that only impact one client. Does that mean that client doesn't matter? Am I telling you to ignore or not care about those clients? Absolutely not, right? They absolutely matter. This is why you have team members and hopefully, core values and business structures, et cetera, that deeply care about the people that you are called to serve. But if you're spending time and you're now, like, kind of in that CEO role and not just like, most gym owners, like, I'm a general manager of a gym that I own, right? If you're spending time on one client decisions instead of doing things that say, hey, what accountability structures can we put in place to create better results for all our clients? Hey, what new sessions should we add, or specialty programs, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the things are that are going to move the needle for everyone across the board, what continuing education things can we put in place so that all the trainers in the business can continue to grow, develop, and provide a better service? Those are things that you want to be thinking of at this stage that impact more than just one person. What systems can you put in place and structures can you put in place to make the business run more efficiently, more streamlined, to make it such that a less skilled person can come in and do something well, or make it such that you can onboard trainers faster and more effectively, so It doesn't take you 8 weeks to get somebody that's really great on the floor. It takes you 4 or 3 or 2 or whatever the numbers are going to be for you and your business. And so avoid the one client decisions if you are in this stage. If you still find yourself dealing with one client decisions, let go, right? Literally that situation is okay. So you've got this, your team member brings you the monkey of the one client asking about a pause policy. You say, all right, so what do you think we should do? Bring me your 1-3-1. They're going to give you their options. Say what you think they want to do. And then what I like to do is if I have something that's a relatively low stakes decision, you can let the team member run with it, right? If they're operating in accordance with your values, then let them deal with the decision. Let them throw them some bones. If you're trying to train up decision makers and every time they come with a decision, you're disagreeing with them, maybe you've got the wrong decision maker. That's one thing. Like maybe you need to get somebody else in the seat. But if it's the right person in the seat, they're not going to want to be your decision maker very long because it's very demotivating to be told like, no, this is wrong. This is stupid. I'm smart. You're not. It's like they're not going to want to keep working with you forever. So those are the distractions, and the how to climb the ladder is to hire higher level people, right? Higher level people. That's a funny thing to say, right? Higher and higher. Well, what is that? Was it is it a homonym? Homonym is the word, right? They sound the same, but they are spelled differently. Higher and higher, higher. Hire level people and level yourself up as a manager and coach so that you are developing better leaders and managers and decision makers within the business. If you can continue to do that and you've got people that can really run the show at location one, then you have the opportunity to start to expand, thinking about growing into a second location. And the interesting thing about this one is, I to be clear, I don't think you owning a second location automatically makes you an investor. I think you can very much be sitting in that leveled up leader maker role at probably about 2 locations. And then once you move to 3 for sure, now you absolutely have to have additional leaders within the business because you're not going to be able to physically handle every big decision, every big situation at each of the gyms. So you're expanding the operation, you're developing real leaders, and eventually developing someone that, again, basically sits as you can argue a freaking co-CEO or a regional manager, director, or whatever those terms feel most appropriate to you. And you move into stage 4, which is the independent investor. And this is where you are basically literally only working in the business if you absolutely want to. So this would be a stage where you are looking at data and you maybe have your 2 to 3 facility leaders reporting to you if you're in a smaller operation. Otherwise, you probably only have your, again, titles. We need there's probably a whole podcast to do about titles and why you want to be careful with titles, but you might have your integrator, your COO, your true right hand handling all of the direct reports of the facility leaders, and you are only talking to the COO, right hand, etc., and looking at the data dashboards and making big picture decisions where your decisions now are basically, where do I want to put capital? Where do we want to expand next? Where should we open our next location? Do we need to hire, real higher level people? Do you need to start looking at getting an ops manager, ops director, COO, integrator, whatever those roles are, like hire a true number 2 where you are the COO or CEO, you are basically operating as if you're on the board of directors for your business and leadership is just reporting to you, giving you a monthly and quarterly report on here's what the performance looks like. And if you want to make strategic business-wide decisions, you can, but it's almost an option to you at this stage.
And so, GR, what does stage 4 look like in practice? Like, what does the day-to-day of that look like? I'm sure it can vary, but what have you seen?
Yeah, it depends on how involved you want to get and how hard and fast you want to grow the operation. So these guys like Connor Flayhive and Mark Innes. Okay, we've talked about this when we used to have a podcast. They're at I believe 5. Actually, Mark may be at 6. I think Connor's at 7 or 8 locations now at this point. Those guys want to continue to expand the footprint to who knows how many locations, right? But they're not done. And so for them, they are absolutely operating more as like, I want to be a freaking true gympire builder and keep expanding the operation. So like you can still be very involved at this stage. It's just the things that you are involved in, the problems you're solving, the decisions you're making are more business wide than they are, okay, this just affects one location or this just affects a handful of clients or one subset of a population or what have you, right? The day to day can vary because there's a world where you say, okay, I've got like my goals as a gym owner are to make a couple $100,000 a year, and I get to the point to where my X number of locations are providing me a couple $100,000 a year, and I get my monthly report from the COO. They call and get feedback from me when they want to call and get feedback from them, when they feel like they need it. But otherwise, they're kind of running the business, and I am truly just like an investor. This is all not quite like, oh, I own Apple stock, right? And I'm just an investor of Apple, and the business grows or doesn't, regardless of what decisions I make, right? As a freaking stockholder, shareholder of Apple. Most of these folks that are really trying to grow into multiple locations have higher goals than make $100,000 a year, whatever it is, be completely passive. And so they want to continue to play the game. And those guys are more involved in playing the game. They're still going to be the best developers of people typically within their business. So they're still meeting with leadership, really trying to develop the leadership, making decisions on where to open the next locations, solving big problems, right? Working with facility leaders or operators, integrators, COOs to solve those big problems. So like, I don't have a great answer for you on what the day-to-day looks like. It's sort of a choose your own adventure depending on how big you want to go with the thing.
So in stage 4, independent investor, what are the focuses?
Yeah. So I mean, the big thing is the business-wide decisions, right? You want to make decisions that impact the business as a whole. This is vision. This is strategy, right? Overarching strategy. How many gyms do you want to open at this point? Do you need to implement something that's going to impact the quality of life for clients and or team across the board? Do we need to add benefits or do something that's going to give us a more compelling edge on hiring the best talent and being able to hire the best talent at this stage? Are you driving the culture at the gym? Right. So we've got this whole theory. I did a talk on it at one of our old Gympire masterminds where it's like trickle-down culturenomics. Okay. I think people make the argument that trickle-down economics is like a fallacy. I don't know if that's true or false. Like I'm not a political person, but trickle-down culturenomics is absolutely a thing. There's the dilution of culture as you move further and further down the accountability chart. Right. And so that culture and your values and your performance, it starts at the top. And you want to make sure that the people that you directly affect are as close. Maybe they can be better than you, but most of the time they're going to be, if you're 100%, hopefully they're 99% or 99.99 or whatever. But if you've got those folks at 99, well, great. Like there's another dilution after that, right? With the folks that they directly impact. And so you need to make sure that you're driving culture across the board. If your direct reports, say you've got your facility leaders directly reporting to you, are only operating at 80% of what you would consider an elite level for your business, odds are pretty good that the rank and file that are actually interacting with clients are not at 80%, right? They might be at 60, and now all of a sudden the product may be getting worse. So we need to make sure that we're driving culture across the board, continuing to develop the leaders that are maybe managing the leaders at this stage, and capital allocation, right? So at this point, it becomes a big question of money. Hey, do we want to invest XYZ in buying a building for our next location? Do we just want to keep leasing? Like, where do I want to put the capital? What markets do we want to open into? Like big business-wide decisions would be the focus at this stage.
And GR, for this stage, I know you mentioned that the distractions are similar to what we talked about with stage 3, the leveled up leader maker. Is there anything uniquely distracting once you get to the independent investor stage?
I mean, I think it depends on how big you want to grow the thing. So if you want, this is like a potentially hot take, is I think some of these guys that are moving into multiple locations would do a lot better if they stayed focused on continuing to grow the multiple locations. Keep the main thing the main thing. So what happens a lot of times, and this is again why I say it's choose your own adventure. These guys get to 3 locations, 4 locations, whatever it may be. They start to make a little bit of money, and they say, oh, "Okay, I'm going to get into Airbnbs." That was really popular for a long time, and it's like, "Oh, let me get into this other type of business." Dude, the reality is, I think, you know, look, your 3 location gym, sorry, is not going to create this like massive exit for you. Like venture capital and franchising and so on and so forth, they're not looking at you without, and franchising is a completely different thing. So please, listeners that like, oh, that's a stupid thing to mention venture capital and franchising in the same terms. Like venture capital is someone from the outside coming in to invest in your business, and maybe they take it and want to go franchise it or whatever. Franchising is something that you can decide to do. Like I've seen people try to do franchises with having 1 location, sometimes not that successful of a location, but the enterprise value that you can create by keeping the main thing is often infinitely higher than saying, okay, like now I'm going to go start a coaching program. Now I'm going to go start doing Airbnbs. Now I'm going to start a real estate business or whatever it is. Like I think the true distraction for these folks is not just continuing to grow and scale the thing. They've already shown they have the ability to grow and scale. Like it's sort of the same stuff. It's like you get bored and you think, oh, I'm going to go do something else. At this stage, you're probably like it's probably totally fine for you to get bored. Like you're still going to be making money. You're probably making as much money as you want to make. Like more money may not demonstrably improve your quality of life necessarily. It might let you retire earlier if that's something you want to do. But it's like boredom is a distraction at each of these levels. So again, that's like I'm less antagonistic about distractions at this stage because I feel like you've probably earned the right to be distracted, and you're not going to take food off your family's table if you're distracted at the independent investor stage. Like some of us as entrepreneurs, like you've got that entrepreneurial ADD in your blood and you just want to go do different things. I just make the argument that if your goal is to fucking take over the world and make as much money as humanly possible, you're probably going to make a lot more money by trying to get your business to 3 million plus in profits with whatever. Is it 30 locations? Is it 20? Is it 10? Whatever. It's going to vary depending on your model. Like just continue to scale the thing that you've started to prove that you have the ability to scale. And then folks might really start looking at, okay, we're going to put some money behind this thing and give you an actual exit that to date, like I don't think gym owners have really experienced in the boutique space.
I once heard a quote that was, "You make money in your business and you lose money in other people's businesses," which always resonated with me. And it sounds a little bit like keep the keep the goal. And once you've built this level 4 empire, you've got systems and talent and people, and you can really just keep doing higher and higher leverage things and approaching the skill building game, as it were. So not many, not a high percentage of folks will make it to this level 4. Just to bring it up as we start to bring this to a close, I've heard, talking about levels 1 through 4. Do I have to keep climbing the ladder? Do I have to get there? Or, as we were sort of saying earlier, if I want to stay in stage 1, stage 2, like, is that okay? Is this, scaling mandatory for me to lead a good life?
It is absolutely not mandatory. So, you can live a great life at any of the stages if you execute well at each of the stages, right? Now your focuses need to be different, okay? In order to thrive as a self-employed survival individual, right? Self-employed survival, if you're doing well, like you're still going to need a different focus. You need to be focused on different things than someone who's trying to progress from stage 3 to stage 4. But you can be wildly successful at any of these stages. It's more about how much activity do you want to be personally responsible for in the business? How much overall income do you want to make? Because the reality is, like, if you want to be the only trainer in your business, you're probably going to have a lower income ceiling than someone who's stage 4 with 10 gyms, right? And continuing to add, their plan is to add 20 in the next 5 years or whatever, right? Like your income ceiling is going to be lower. But for folks that say like, dude, I don't want to deal with multiple landlords. Great. Build a thriving single location gym and live as a moving up manager that is at the peak of stage 2, right? It's like I don't know, it's kind of like skiing. Like I love skiing, okay? Like I can ski blacks sometimes if they're not the super double black diamond and whatnot, what have you. But like, dude, this is choose your own adventure, man. Like not everybody's going to the top of the mountain, and I'm not going to the top of the mountain backcountry shit, right? I'm getting off the lift where I want to get off, and I'm going to enjoy myself and ski well at those runs, right? By cruising blues. It's choose your own adventure.
Amen to that. All right. I think that's a great place to close it. Life and gym ownership is a choose your own adventure. So hopefully everyone got value out of learning the 4 stages, what to focus on, what's going to distract you, and then what you need to do to climb the ladder to the next stage and what winning looks like at each. GR, anything else?
I think that's it for now. See you in
All
the
right,
next episode,
folks.
my loves.